With that, we'd like to welcome in our panelist. Fred Fleitz joins us, former Trump National Security Council Chief of Staff, former CIA analyst, and John Hardie, Russia Program Deputy Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Welcome to you both, and thanks so much for coming on. Okay, Fred, maybe you can put this in perspective for our viewers here, because this is a shakeup. It's the first one to move around in the Trump administration after confirmation, right? What's going on with Michael Waltz here? Is this sort of a downgrade for him? And where does this all tie back to? Is it the Signalgate issue?
Well, it's great to be here. Look, President Trump runs the government like a business, and he'll move people out who he may have lost confidence in or he thinks can do better elsewhere. Obviously, this had to do with Signalgate and some problems that Waltz had. But I think Trump values Waltz. That's why he agreed to make him his ambassador to the United Nations. I think that's an important job. It's a vote of confidence in his capabilities. It's not personal. He was moved out. We will see a lot of people moved out in this government because Trump only has 4 years to put his agenda forward. And if there's someone there who's not operating at full capacity, Trump's going to move them out.
Yeah, John, I want to get your comment on that as well. The shakeup, it was reported and not confirmed for a minute, and then now we have everything confirmed here, and he's to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Waltz. Talk about what's on Rubio's plate, if you could. As I mentioned earlier, New York Times calling him the secretary of everything. But what does that realistically do to one man with all of this on his plate?
Well, thanks for having me on. Yes, Secretary Rubio will be quite busy, and I hope that the Trump administration can get someone else in that job ASAP. I think Secretary Rubio is quite capable, but if you're being dual-hatted like that, it is quite a lot for one person to handle, especially since the National Security Advisor is supposed to be the one coordinating among all the different agencies. And Secretary Rubio, of course, has plenty on his plate handling the State Department.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And like I said, we'll wait and see how quickly this role can be replaced. But I wanted to ask you about this minerals deal with Ukraine, Fred. We've been waiting for this forever, right? And President Trump, in his efforts to assist with ending this war, is now putting this forward and saying, let's make a deal here. We're waiting to see Russia's response, and we've got something from it here. This is the former Russian President, Dmitry Medvedev, saying Trump has broken the Kyiv regime to the point where they will have to pay for U.S. aid with mineral resources here. Is this a legitimate critique or just something out of Russia to distract this U.S. and Ukraine cooperation?
Oh, I think this is another cheap shot by the Russians. They don't want to see relations between Trump and Zelensky improving. Let's first stipulate that the U.S. needs a lot of agreements like this because China has a monopoly on these rare earth minerals, and it is urgent that we counter that monopoly and go after these minerals wherever they are. Now, it may take a while to get these minerals out of the ground, but the most important reason for this deal is because it is a sign that Zelensky is playing ball with President Trump. This is very important to Trump, and it was important that since Trump really wanted this, Zelensky said, I'm grateful for your assistance. If you want this, Ukraine is going to go along.
Yeah, it's explained as essentially a revenue share, right, once this mining process begins. But again, you got to find the contractors that are willing to go into certain areas, John, including Russian-occupied territories in Ukraine, which are, from what we've seen, where some of these rare earth minerals are. How realistic is this? Talk to us about this deal. And again, the sheer mining process with Russia being in parts of Ukraine where, again, those minerals are potentially.
Yeah, what in terms of tangible kind of impacts, what will come out of this deal remains to be seen. I think it's more of a long-term prospect. I think
right.
For the here and now, what's most important is that this agreement gives President Trump a win. It's also a win for the Ukrainians, and it gives President Trump a stake in the future of Ukraine and kind of his business-oriented mindset. So I would just remind President Trump that this agreement will be worthless if Ukraine does not have the arms it needs both to achieve peace now and to make that peace durable, meaning deter a follow-on Russian invasion. So to my mind, that's where U.S. efforts should be focused, is in and not only getting that peace now, but then making Ukraine a so-called steel porcupine that can deter that future Russian aggression.
All right, very interesting. John Hardie, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts.